cloud. Record to the cloud. Wow, we got some people online. My good friend, Pastor Jim Holm is here, and my good friend, Mr. Bruce Emerson is here. Welcome. Thank you guys so much. Mr. Cook, thank you for joining us. And man, we got a house a little bit. I got to be 100% honest with you guys. I am as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. I'm telling you what, I am nervous. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when this idea came to me, I believe it was divinely inspired. I believe first and foremost that the church, the local body of believers, we should be a place where it is safe and comfortable to have difficult conversations, right? Coming out of last year's election, I saw in many ways, I'm not saying pick sides, who is what or whatnot. I saw the country really just ripped apart on a lot of levels. And can I be honest with you guys? Unfortunately, I also saw people of faith, people who I believe should reflect the light and love of Jesus Christ, kind of get embroiled in some of the divisiveness. And when I presented this to the staff, they said, well, let's maybe change the name from Culture Wars to something else. And I said, hey, I thought about it. And then I said, no, I actually want it to be a slap in the head. Why? Because our culture is at war. We are separated and divided on so many lines. I was speaking to a doctor today, and they said the thing that makes one person have a lot of melanin in their skin, the thing that makes people have almond-shaped eyes, my brothers and sisters from the Asian community, they said it's like 0.0000001% in DNA that changes us, that gives us a different look. So we are actually much more alike than we are different. And I said, well, so why are we blowing each other up over things that really, when you shake it all out, are really small, right? So I wanted to have these discussions. And my good friend Tara, she said this, and I steal it. I'm going to give her credit, but it's all me, baby. She said, what she said was, she says, we need an opportunity and a place to practice having difficult conversation. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to start this idea of culture war. And as you, I don't know if anybody noticed, I'm just going to call a thing what it is. I'm black. And so we're gonna start with something that maybe I know a little bit about, maybe not. I have my opinions. We're gonna talk about race tonight, because that's one of those things in our culture that is separating and dividing us pretty dramatically. And I'm so blessed that I get the Queen with me tonight. So. Can we open in prayer? And then I'm going to give us rules for engagement. All right, so we're going to pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity to come together in a format like this and share and experience and learn from one another and be able to peek inside of one another, Father. And I ask that you would be on tonight. I ask that you would touch each and every person that's here. Open their hearts, open their minds, open their ears to understanding. And we hope that this becomes a place. We hope the church, not just Redmond Community Church, but all churches, that this becomes a place. The church becomes a place where we can learn how to be unified instead of divided, because Christ came for us all. We thank you, Father, that you are here with us, and we give you honor and glory in Jesus' name. Amen. So here's what I'm going to ask, whether you're here in person, and whether you're online. Our job, Nicole and I, what we're going to do, we're going to act like facilitators. We're going to facilitate conversation. So anybody is free to speak. Now, having said that, here are a couple things. These are the rules of engagement. First, love. First, love. Whether you agree or disagree, here is what is true. Everyone in this room, everyone on this call, everyone that is not here, we are image bearers first. So we love. 2, listen. So I'm so glad you joined us. If you could do me just one little teensy tiny favor, just mute yourself, please. Thank you. No, it's okay. Don't be sad. So we listen. I think one of the fundamental difficulties that we have when we start approaching conversations like this is we've lost our ability to listen. I'm going to be honest with you. I have the views that I have because those are my experience. I've fought for them. I've been in battle with them. So I have the views that I have. Guess what? You all have the views that you have. And what we want to do is just listen. 3, lean in. Brene Brown says this: it is hard to hate people up close. So we love. We listen, we lean in. And the last one, and this is most important, our mission, if you will, tonight is not to change anyone's mind. Our mission is to understand. Understand. Understand, because every one of us has a perspective that is unique to them. And our point is, what we want to do is we simply want to understand. So if we can remember those rules of engagement, we love, we listen, we lean in, and we seek to understand, not change. Okay? And we're asking very, very nicely, if you don't believe that you can follow those rules of engagement, we want you to stay, be here, but we may ask you to refrain. Okay? Any thoughts on that, my queen, before we go? Anything? Nothing? Are you up there? Huh?
He said, baby, step by me, step by me.
So what we're going to start with, so Jesse, we're going to get ready. What we have today, we're going to look at some clips. We have some YouTube clips to share. We're going to look at some film clips. And these film clips represent the polarization of this issue in our culture. Okay. There are people that say no, there are people that say yes. We're going to look, and then what we're going to do is we're going to have some conversation, and then Nicole and I are going to share some perspectives, some observations that we've had that is unique to our life and understanding, and we invite any of you to do the same. So, all right, Jesse, if you would bring up the first clip.
The whole thing is the president and general you think that's looking at what's happening in town. Is that a good idea? We're acting. We have a much more violent society when we don't have such a habit during that. We need that little ground that we call the people who buy it, people who use the product that the rates are creating. Right? So that's what happens with that. They ain't that whole lot, so they use the human. Without the fact that you're not going to have it at the level that we normally have. So the fact is that it's not considered that because you can get away you know, I said, probably getting involved, but so I know that, but I said, I think that every single day of I wanted to go to the over.
No, just pause the next one. We won't go into the next one just yet. So, we have Morgan Freeman, who basically is on the side of, hey, why are we making this such a big deal? What are your thoughts? Let me ask this. Does his argument have merit in your opinion? I'm going to ask you to come on up if you have some. Come on. Yeah, come on up. Absolutely. Come on up, Brother Gary. That's okay. It's all right. You want me to come back there? All right.
No, people are people. And really, whether you're black, white, polka dot, or anything else, it's the heart that counts. And really, I have friends, other friends that are black besides Tom, but I love Tom. He's my brother. He's my son. You know, I'm old enough to be his dad, but no, I just, I totally agree with what Morgan Freeman has said on that part. Sometimes I don't agree politically with people, but that's a different issue and a totally different issue. And I see problems all around on both sides, and I don't like such divisiveness among people. You know, speak out of your heart, love one another as Christ loved us.
Okay. Come.
Okay. So we were talking about that with Morgan Freeman, and I totally agree with him. But there's been kids they're talking about in school that are getting what's called canceled because if they say that. So like if a white kid says, well, how come this was just happening, how come there isn't a White History Month? He was canceled and threatened to be, expelled from school. So he's just asking the same question. So can a white person be discriminated against? And I've heard people say, no, that's not possible. That's not possible. So, what I always say, this color of my skin is not something I chose. It was my mom and dad, and they didn't even choose it. It's just not anything I chose. I don't want to be judged. Also, like I would never judge you. I don't want to be judged by my lack of melanin, so I've gone out and tanned to try to get it more, but so anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I'm going to do the hard thing because what we want to do is have a difficult or potentially good, safe conversation. Anybody disagree with Morgan? Would you like to share? You don't have to do anything. No, you don't have to share, but I mean, I think it adds to the conversation. And again, it's not a judgment. It's not of anything, but you don't have to do anything. Okay, you're gonna tell me in my ear? Okay, go. That's okay, go. So the comment, and I'm going to paraphrase, and if I get it wrong, please correct me. Her statement was, if anybody has gone through something that has been difficult or hurtful because of race, she says, I think that it's wrong to tell anyone that they can't speak on it in an attempt to make it disappear. Did I get that correct? Okay. Sir, welcome. I'm doing great. It's so good to see you. Welcome. Good. What's your name, sir? Nice to meet you, sir. Yeah, please.
Well, I disagree with Morgan Freeman a little bit. And the reason why I disagree with him a little bit is because I don't know Morgan Freeman, never met him face to face, but he's doing well in life, okay? I grew up in Harlem, New York City, and my parents are Caribbean. They came there from the Caribbean. I've done well in life, you understand? But I've seen people in my neighborhoods around me that were struggling and suffering, and they didn't have anything. The fact of the matter is, everyone can't make it. That's just the way it works, and unfortunately, that's the reality of things. The reason why I say that is that if you're oppressed, if you can't get a job, just like we could use Redmond for an example. One of the things that I kind of campaigned on when I ran was the fact that we have homeless people in this area right now, okay? Redmond, people that live in Redmond, they've lived in a bubble. No offense to you guys, but you guys have lived in a bubble. And what I mean by that is that you've been unaffected by the outside world because there's another world out there that you guys don't see very much, okay? I've seen it. I lived in New York. I was a naval officer. I was in law enforcement. I was a commander for the sheriff's department, and I've seen all ends of the spectrum. So I'm not saying anybody's wrong or right. What I'm saying is that everybody has obstacles in front of them. And the way we handle those obstacles is the way it works. Now, a young lady got up just a few minutes ago and talked about we all should love each other. And I'm like that. I'm a Christian. I believe that as well. You understand? But the fact that we should also help each other. And so Morgan Freeman is not a good litmus test. Okay, Denzel Washington is not a good litmus test. You know, Oprah Winfrey is not a good litmus test. Those are people that have done extremely well for whatever reason. We all have obstacles in life, and God gives us those obstacles. The fact of the matter, he says, love thy neighbor as thyself. Okay, and for us to stand around and dislike each other because of the color of our skin, which this young lady or somebody just pointed out, that's crazy. We didn't get to ask to come on earth what color we came out. Okay, we are all human beings and we need to respect each other. And that's my position on that. So Morgan Freeman is a nice actor and I like him. Okay, I like his movies and everything, but somewhat disagree with him. So that's what I have to say.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate sharing. Awesome. Yeah, I think that's and this is what we want to talk about. Anybody else before we look at the next clip? Because he represents one perspective that, hey, maybe we are making it a bigger deal than it, maybe not that it is, but that it needs to be. That's one perspective. Anyone else before we look at the next clip? Thank you for sharing. Come on up. Come on up. Listen, love. Okay.
You know. Well, my perspective is right on with about the people that are in bad shape, but I'm not sure it's so much the color as the poverty. We have a terrible poverty issue and a terrible education system for the people in poverty. And if there was some way that we could get education to people and get help to the people that are poor, you don't have to be white and rich. You can be white and desperately poor, just like you can be black and in terrible shape too. So that's just my 2 cents.
I love your 2 cents. Thank you for sharing. Shelby? Yes, because Brandy already took the one didn't have to spot. So she ruined it for everybody else. Brandy ruined it.
So I guess I have a question because I understand exactly what you're saying. But when you were speaking, I was thinking of what about choices? Because I grew up in poverty as well. I made different choices when I was a teenager and able to work than my brother did, for example, and I'm much better off than my brother is. My dad is still in poverty. So what I wonder about is, what about choices? You know, that's one of the things that I think about when I think about this issue too, because there are people in bad shape, but there are regular everyday Joes that are not Morgan Freeman that can also pull themselves out as well.
Thank you for your perspective. I appreciate that. Anyone else? This is good. This is what we want to encourage. Okay. Jesse, oh, go ahead, Bruce, please. I love it. Great.
And basically, we were taught to go by the character of the person, not by their color. So we've been taught for 40, 50 years. Now color is more important than the character. So what happened? You know, I mean, I was raised in a family that they were racist. And I had to work through that. And my teachers and everyone helped me. So I just don't understand where we went from the 70s and 80s where everybody was starting to work together into now we got this giant division. So that's my question.
That's a valid question as well. Thank you for your perspective. I'm going to hang on and we're going to come back to you, Ms. Costello. Anybody else before we? All right, we're going to look at another perspective. Jesse? Okay, I want to make sure that if you're on the Zoom call, you also are free to chime in because we want to hear from you. So if you have a question or a comment, just simply unmute yourself and we'll give you the floor as well. So now we have this other perspective. Thoughts about racism being so ingrained in our culture that it's unavoidable. Thoughts? Okay. Any thoughts? Well, I'm gonna get to my experience here in a little bit. I'll share with you my
I've
experience.
got a thought, Pastor.
Yes.
Sorry for the cough earlier. This is the Wolf residence.
Hello. How are
This is
you?
Ben. Yeah, good. Hey,
Good.
I had a
Hey,
thought.
Ben.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Thanks for putting this on. It's been awesome. It's really great to hear just all the great feedback. When I wasn't able to hear the audio on that, but I could really pick up and see what was happening, what they were trying to portray. And like, I think sometimes these things are trying to bring something to the surface that isn't there. Like that I don't know, like for me and my family, it's like the way I was brought up was, you know, as one of the other ladies or gentlemen were saying, you know, as Dr. King said, that you judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And when you start, you know, creating these advertisements and these things that young kids are seeing and viewing, it almost it's creating something that it's a learned behavior, right? It's not something that we're born with, is my perspective. Like I was looking at those two little babies sitting there, and you know, they're all happy and smiling, and you know, we're created with, you know, in God's image, and you know, these are learned behaviors, I think, from different pressures from society and different things from my perspective. And I guess maybe that's easy for me to say because I'm a Caucasian male, and perhaps I have had, you know, more opportunities than others in life, but also I've worked my way, you know, from cleaning toilets and a janitorial service when I was first hired at my job, and I put in the time and the effort and the determination, and those were choices that I made for me personally, but it started with an opportunity. You know, somebody saw me as a valuable person and wanted to give me a shot, and maybe that's because I was white. I don't know. I can't say that's not why, you know, I was selected for that position, you know, all those years ago, but I just don't know. But I think, you know, for me, it seems like it's just, it's learned behavior, you know, as we grow up in culture, and then I think sometimes we can become, you know, victims, thinking, oh, you know, I wasn't given this opportunity. So, well, okay, well, what is your choice? Are you gonna, you know, go out? I like a lot of the things that Candace Owen says. We listen to her a lot. She has a lot of great points. And anyways, I'm rambling on, but those are my comments. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Pastor, if I may.
You may.
Yeah. I've heard this is the second time the issue of choices has come up. And for the last few years, I've been involved in working with homeless service providers here in Central Oregon. You know, and I hear that a lot, but my response is always, what do you think the choice was that people chose homelessness as the preferable choice? I mean, were they fleeing domestic abuse? You know, were they thrown out of their home because they're gay? You know, we see in the statistics that if you're Black, Latino, you're more likely to be homeless than if you're white. If you're a LGBT youth, you're much more likely to be homeless. I mean, we're seeing, if you say it's about choices, then you're basically saying that these groups make bad choices. And I don't think that's what the case is. I think it's, you know, it is a learned behavior, but we live in a culture that teaches that behavior. You know, I'm old enough to know when there weren't Blacks on TV. You you know, I'm old enough to remember being at the local Moose Club playing bingo with my grandma the night Martin Luther King was shot. And someone said, I hope he dies. He never did anything but cause trouble. I mean, we can't just all get, you know, link hands and sing Kumbaya and think that that mentality doesn't exist and isn't having an effect on people. I mean, it's very real, it's very out there, and you know, it's beyond just changing ourselves. We have to change the culture we're living in.
Sir, thank you so much for your perspective. I really enjoyed listening to your comments. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate that. Listen, love. Okay.
All the way, all the way, all the way. Hello. So I think one of the things that we were talking about too is that the second video brought up was the fact that it's systemic. So we have to find a way to understand the horrible history. We have to get comfortable with understanding that history and realizing, and our hearts need to be broken over it. It's horrible. And it wasn't just history that happened in the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries. It happened well into the 19th and 20th century as well, when it came to folks, you know, in the West that were advertising to all the white folks in the East to come out of the big cities, come out to white neighborhoods, come out to, you know, there was a lot of that happened, a lot of, what's the word when they're trying to promote that, you know, and that's evil. I mean, that was evil at its intent, at its heart, and even our own state with, you know, our, the Constitution of our state didn't allow for African Americans to even be here, let alone have a job, own property or whatever. It breaks my heart. If you haven't watched 13th, I really, really encourage you to watch it. It's on Netflix. Opened my eyes completely to what happened after the Jim Crow laws were placed in the South, and what happened is happening still in our prison systems today. It is based on poverty, and it is based, sadly, on race. So I think just understanding the systemic part of it, you know, we need to cut it down, cut it at the root, get the root out, you know, and start new. But it does come with facing that, I think, face to face with that really horrid history that we have. As proud as we are.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you. Anybody else? And then we're gonna show just one. Oh, just can you hang on just a little bit? And I'm gonna have you just hang. So just hold on to that. Hold on to that. Because we want anybody else that may want to share one more, and then we're gonna look at the next clip. Come on, Sandra.
I actually, probably for 4 years of my life, I grew up in a Black neighborhood. And, you know, as a kid, I didn't know any different. And then one day in grade school, and I was pretty tiny, hard to believe, but I was. And this Black girl that was very big came and slugged me in the face because I was white and because I wore glasses. And I didn't know at the time, but it was, you know, I thought it was just, I didn't know why. And then some of the riots started. I don't remember exactly when in Portland. I mean, I think I was in maybe junior high. I don't remember. And my dad worked down on Stanton Avenue, which was in the Black part of town. And things started happening to him when he would be driving back and forth to work. And I would hear my parents talk, and I got really scared. I didn't even look at it as black and white. I just knew that, you know, these Black people were throwing things and doing things. And then we had to go to the doctor, to the hospital that was down there. And they were throwing things at our car. And I was terrified. And so it wasn't because, in my eyes, because they were Black, it was because they were trying to hurt me. or hurt us. And I still, to this day, I have a hard time understanding why skin color makes such a difference. It makes no difference to me. But what I'm trying to say is it wasn't because of the skin color. If it would have been white people, polka dot people, green people, I would have been afraid of them. And so I think a lot of times it's our actions that cause the issues.
Jesse, would you play the last clip for us?
Well, first of all, I think most of what I heard on the broadcast all the way here is confusing. I think we're living in the twilight zone. This is an issue, and my personal opinion is that for our country, for a living life. I mean, this is one police officer, one person in the community. They found him guilty. This was the swiftest justice I ever seen in my life. The day after the came out, he was arrested. He was tried. 10 hours of deliberation, he was convicted. Sure, why people are acting like this month is. Also, he did not get the fair trial, in my personal opinion. There was a lot of obstruction that happened. They paid the family out $27 million before the jury to be selected. I mean, they're out of case, they're real. So I don't know why people are celebrating. I don't know if this is something people quite other than people are making money out of paying of people in my country. We're getting first into some of the things happening around the trial. That's now there's a conviction after that. But secondly, you're upset that there's an amalgamation here. They want to set a landmark case and this one specific court case. Yeah, this is not a landmark case. I mean, this is a political event. They're pushing on our country. Police in America do not grant racist. We don't live in a racist country. This was an interaction between a police officer that I thought did the wrong thing and a black man who was on drugs and ended up being killed by a police officer. That's as simple as it can be. The president of the United States got out and made a fool of himself, trying to promote racism in a simple police encounter that the officer got convicted on. And you don't know the fact that the advice and comment about systemic racism and being a state and then yes, President Biden is big in my personal opinion, and he's just talking because he's a politician. Systemic racism. I mean, if you look at Joe Biden himself, you know, he spoke at a funeral and did the eulogy of Robert Byrd. I mean, he is white supremacy and racism. If you want to say that's the case, and that's the president. So if you really care about racism and racism, he should step down as a president. It's the exemplification of that very thing. These people are just running their mouth. Being honest. We don't have a problem with racism in our country. We have a problem with people not following the law. We also have a problem with politicians making up things so they can get real at it. And that's exactly what is happening. That's why we never see anything change. They're lying to us. For the rest of people being killed by the series of races are black people who rest of the population. What the idea after that is that there's a problem. Yeah, that's the first one I do. Twice as many white people go kill our police every year. Twice as many white people kill our police every year. You just don't see it. There's a gentleman named Tony Temple. I guess you can't find out who that Tony Temple is. Tony Temple was murdered in the same fashion that George Floyd was killed. But because he was white, we don't hear about it. Nobody cares about it. Nobody talks about police reform when he was suffocated and killed. But they always talk about it because George Floyd was black. Black people live there over half a lot of this country and only live 13% of the population. They commit over half of the murders, but only make up 13% of the population. And we know that 13% of the population, there's only a small fraction of the black community that's doing this. So they explain why police are in the black community more, and they explain why black people are incarcerated more. They are making them say that it has anything to do with racism. Do you understand that there are black police officers too that patrol in many of these majority black cities? Are they racist? No, that's not the case. They're just making these things up in my personal opinion, and they're riding the wave of dead black people in order to make money and be politically
Well, Brandon Tatum. He's a former police officer that kind of took to YouTube, and he speaks on issues of social justice in the country. What we want to do here, I wanted us to, kind of start to prime our minds just for some conversation. And, a lot of probably bits and pieces about who I am and kind of where I came from. Prior to moving to Redmond, Oregon, my career was in law enforcement. So I'm a former police officer. So, but before I kind of share some thoughts, I thought that I would ask the missus to give some insights, because I think her perspective, being married to a Black man in America today, also a former police officer, she was with me during that time, can lend some insights. Again, like everybody has shared, and I love it, it's a perspective. I'm going to share a perspective. I'm not saying that my perspective or our perspective is the right perspective, but it is a perspective. And I think if we can listen to all, because as all of you have shared tonight, I have gleaned something. I've gleaned something. And I think that this is the point. So I just asked Nicole to share a little bit about her perspective, being a white woman in America, married to a Black man in America, and her thoughts a little bit.
So now that I have the mic and you can't tell me no, can I share another thought before I share with you?
Listen, love.
Well, I was thinking, listening to that video and all of our conversations, and there really is no such thing as they. We are they. We are the solution to any problem that this earth will ever see. I'm reminded of snowstorms when it snows, and how many of us have said, well, I would go out and drive because I'm a good driver, but I don't trust other people. You are somebody else's other people. And if that statement was true, we would never have to worry about driving in bad weather. But anyway, that was just a thought of mine. We are they, we are the solution. It is not up to other people to fix people. It's up to us. We are they. So that's all I wanted to share. In terms of my experience being, married, this man is my best friend way before he is anything else. And it's a pretty boring story, uneventful story. I remember one time in our marriage, we were living in a really small community and we were walking, we just moved there and we were holding hands. We were just walking down some little side street. And I just remember seeing these few people are kind of just staring. And I'm like, well, we're new. And he's like, I don't think that's why they're staring. But so I kind of remember that, but then it was as quick as it was like, oh, okay. It was back to our walk. It was back to us. I get that wasn't a very in your face moment, but I'm the type of person who doesn't get caught up in the opinions of other people about my life. We've had great experience, with a lot of stereotypes that come with Black people, not everybody, but there are stereotypes. Everything about this man speaks differently, that blanket statement needs to be thrown out. He's intelligent and well-spoken, and, he educated himself and made a way for himself from a family who didn't have to always provide for him. He made that way. So in terms of experiencing racial struggles as, you know, a white woman and a Black man, I haven't. I haven't really experienced any, but like I said, but I look at him like I get to hang with my best friend every day. And we are lucky to be in a community that is respectful of that. I will say that. Yeah. Oh, so whenever I think of our kids, it's funny because where we're from Pennsylvania, Northwest Pennsylvania, and you were either white or you were Black if you lived in our community. That was the cultural diversity there. And so when we moved here, everybody thinks they're Hispanic. So no, they have not had any negative experiences because they're brown. Yeah.
I'm going to put myself on blast a little bit, and I want to share something just really kind of interesting. And one of the reasons that we wanted to have these conversations in Zulu, and I know the church body has heard me use the term before, in Zulu, there's a word called sawubona. And sawubona means I see you. And I was listening recently to a podcast where somebody was referring to the word sawubona, and they said, as much as that is important, you should also see yourself. You know, before we can see one another, we actually have to see ourselves. And when the Chauvin thing first happened with Mr. Floyd, you know, I spoke to a bunch of people and places, being a former police officer, and just a quick 30,000 foot view of my life. I know I've mentioned it before. I spent a lot of my life, probably the last 27 years, training the men and women of law enforcement. I routinely get calls from all over the country from police agencies that ask me to look at training and policy, and I'm a court-recognized expert witness in force. So all of those things. So me and my daughter are having a conversation, and I'm irate. I'm irate. And my 21-year-old daughter, she's just amazing. And it was one of those moments that you just kind of go, wow. She said, you know, she listened to me kind of rant on about something. And she finally looks at me and she says, Dad, can I ask you a question? And I said, yes, sweetheart, you can ask me a question. She said, did you suffer greater injustice as a police officer than you did as a Black man? And I was like, what? Right? I'm like blown away, you know, and I really, it kind of froze me, and I stopped and I'm listening, I'm thinking, and I finally looked at her and I said, you know, sweetheart, probably. And I said, why do you ask? And she said, I noticed that when you talk about the police, you say we. But when you talk about Black people, you say them. And I was like, man, and it was like, you know, so much of what's going on, as Nicole already said, has become a them versus us problem instead of a we problem. When I hear the word systemic racism, the first thing that I think about is, well, what's the system that we're going to fix? Because we are the system. We're the system, you know? My story maybe is weird. I grew up, it was interesting listening to where you come from and your background. I'm born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. That's where I'm from. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland, Ohio, at the time that I grew up in the 80s, Cleveland, Ohio was divided pretty evenly, if you will. East side of Cleveland is predominantly Black. West side of Cleveland is predominantly white, and Hispanic being Puerto Rican. And I'm in elementary school when I get ready to go into junior high school. So back then it was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. That was junior high school. Anybody remember when 7th, 8th, and 9th grade was junior high and not middle school, right? It was like 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. That was junior high school. Well, when I entered 7th grade, I was part of, at the time, around 1983, part of what was called desegregation. So what they decided to do was they decided to take a whole bunch of Black kids from the east side and bus them to the west side for junior high school. And they took a whole bunch of white and Hispanic kids and bused them to the east side of Cleveland for junior high school. And it was this grand social experiment that I'm going to tell you failed miserably, because here's the truth. Here was my observed truth. The white and Hispanic people didn't want the Black people on the west side of Cleveland. And to be honest with you, the Black people didn't want the white and Hispanic people on the east side of Cleveland. And it just created a lot of tension. So, that was, my first introduction, if you will. And I don't think I fully comprehended and understood what it was until many years later. Now, from a familial standpoint, because I had somebody ask me recently, my paternal grandmother, I lived with her for about a year. We had this little, it looked like a trophy that sat on a counter in our apartment. We lived in a high-rise apartment building in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I knew grandma was a big deal, but I didn't really know how much of a big deal she really was. And I walked past this little thing all the time. And I finally one day said to her, I said, "Grandma, what is that on the counter?" I said, "What is this right here?" And my grandmother looks at me and she goes, "That's an Emmy." My grandmother for 7 years was the host of a television show in Cleveland called Black on Black. And if you come to my office right now, there's actually a picture of her interviewing Cassius Clay. So she, grew up. And so I remember at 13 years old sitting at the table with Benjamin Hooks, who was the head of the NAACP. I remember Jesse Jackson was one of her personal friends. I remember hanging out with his son and a lot of those things. And somebody asked me, they said, "What would your grandmother say if she was alive?" And I got to stand up. They said, "What would your grandmother say if she was alive?" And I thought about it because I had never really considered what grandma might say now. And grandma instilled in us a sense of pride and all of these things. Oh, I don't know what's going on back there. Jesse's playing with the TV. I said, I think grandma would say this if she were alive. Grandma would say, "Is there still a problem?" Grandma would say, "Yes, there's still a problem." I'm not going to stand before you today and say that racism does not exist. And I'm going to say it's not just a black-white issue. It is people who are not the same against people who are not the same issue. My grandmother would say, yes, racism, if she were alive today, she would say, yes, racism still exists. And my grandmother would also say, and we made it. She would have been a contemporary of Martin Luther King. She would say, we made it in a time that was much harder. And I believe that there are opportunities, and this is Tom Benja's perspective. Every single, oh, what is going on?
I'd like to turn my phone. Hang on.
Every technology, you gotta love it, right? Every every single thing that I have in my life, I believe it's directly related to taking advantage of opportunities that I was presented with. And were those opportunities always the same? No, as maybe other people. But guess what? I maximized every opportunity that I felt I could maximize. And I'm going to say this. The stuff that I don't have in life is directly related to the opportunities that I threw away and squandered doing it. When I was a police officer, I was on a police department, and in the history of the police department, there were 4 Black officers ever. I was one of them. And of the 4 Black police officers ever, I was the only one to actually be promoted to the rank of sergeant. And so I live in this community, and it was really interesting because much of the issues that I ran into were from the Black community. I had a lot of people in the Black community, they were upset that I was the police. I had many guys roll up on me and they said, how in the world could you betray your race like this? And I'm going, actually, because I get up every day and I try to provide for my family, and, you know, I don't have 6 kids to 4 different, so I'm doing something wrong. And we had a group of young Black boys in town, and they were just into a lot of tough stuff. It was not great. They were just into some crazy stuff. And one boy, he's 15 years old, he breaks into the house of a 63-year-old white female, murders her, rapes her, steals her car. They catch him, match DNA, I mean, legit. He goes to trial. He's being tried as an adult. So here's a 15, 16-year-old kid. He's getting ready to go to prison for the rest of his life as an adult. And the whole entire Black community, and our community was probably about 25% Black, the whole entire community's out for this conviction. And he gets found guilty. And his uncle walks up to me after the conviction, and he looks me in the face and he says, and this is exactly what he said. He said, tell me how the Black man is supposed to trust the white man when this happens. And yeah, I'm going, what in the world? I'm like, don't kill people. Don't kill people. And I agree with you, sir, that, maybe Morgan Freeman is a tough example because he represents a very small percentage of people. I still say this, and I appreciated what the caller on Zoom had to say about opportunity. And I say this, yes, I don't think anybody chooses to be poor and homeless, and I don't think that they do. At the same time, I think the question is, what do you do with whatever opportunity you have? And I think some of the difficulty is that we are offloading conversation to rhetoric. It's systemic. It's this, it's that, instead of let's have a conversation. Let me try to understand you and you try to understand me. Is it perfect? Are there still things that need a fixing? Yes. But how do we do it? Yes. Hmm. That's a great question. I'm going to say they would say no. I'm going to say that they would say no. And again, that was many, many years ago. But based on everything that we're seeing in the world today, somebody spoke about it earlier. It's almost this idea that if you're Black, you cannot be racist. You can't be racist. And I would go, really? I think anybody can dislike any other race because they're of a different race. That's the definition of racism. 1992, Rodney King. Everybody remember Rodney King? 1992, I'm a police officer. Rodney King happens, and you know it's horrific. It was not great. It was not great at all. Several months prior to Rodney King, there was a police officer by the name of Michelle Jeter. And many of you have probably never even heard of Michelle Jeter. Michelle Jeter is a police officer in Texas. She stops a van driven by a Black male. He's got his 11-year-old daughter in the car. Plates are expired. She stops him, very cordial. They're having a great exchange. She asks him for permission to search the vehicle. He grants permission. And he's seated on the front of Michelle Jeter's car. And so her dash cam video is catching everything. She goes to the driver's side door. And when she's at the driver's side door, you see him motion to his 11-year-old daughter who's out of the car to get to the side of the road. And when she comes back, she tells him, hey, put your hands behind your back, you're under arrest. Well, she finds about 10 pounds of marijuana in the vehicle. That's back when it was illegal. She finds it in the car. So she's gonna place him under arrest. And he says, he goes, what I do? I can't go back to jail, baby. I can't do that. And she's like, you're under arrest. And he launches himself off the car and he beats her severely on the side of the road. The doctor that worked on Michelle Jeter was a medic in Vietnam. And he said, I didn't see hand-to-hand injuries in combat that were as severe as hers. Michelle Jeter's white. Jorge Orozco is Black. Why did we never hear of Michelle Jeter? Is this not another human being? Why? I go, it's because what's the significance of that in this culture? What's the significance of that? Because that doesn't play on news, that doesn't spin, that doesn't get people riled up, that doesn't fire anybody up, that doesn't make the news cycle for a long time. And I go, that's wrong. Because it's about people. Ma'am. Yes, I do. That is a great question. Her question is, in police culture, is there such a thing? And that's actually going to be another topic for Culture Wars, police reform. Right? The question is, do you know the thin blue wall of silence? Does it exists, and does that protect? And here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to be honest with you. Does it exist? Sure. Is it unilateral? Is it every police officer in every state, in every county? No. And here's what I'm going to tell you, because I train police officers. I've trained police officers over 10,000 in every state except for 5. And depending on where you are, go down south, it's different. It's really different. You go east, Boston, Philly, New York, it's different. It's really different. Because I love all my brothers, right, and sisters, right. I'm gonna tell you, yes, it can promote some of that. I'm gonna tell you this: on the West Coast, here, some of the most professional police officers I've ever encountered in my whole entire life. They do the job, they do it well, they take great pride in it, and I think most cops do. Yes, but let me ask you this, because that's a great question. Do you think bad doctors cover for doctors? Do we think teachers have covered for bad teachers? Right? Because it goes back to this. It's not about a profession per se. It's about people. People. And if we can all come to the table and say, this is not, it's not about this thing that's nebulous, and it's about people. It's about people. And how do we change that? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know. Other than, because we're all in church, I'm going to say it. I think the answer is Christ. I think that's the only thing. That's who? Oh, I don't know. So like my wife, have I ever experienced racism? Yes. I've experienced racism. I've experienced it up close, personal, in your face, real. I've experienced it. Do I think it is a white people problem? Unilaterally? No. I think it was that guy's problem. I think it was that woman's problem. I think it was those people's problem. I stand here and I'm going to say opportunity. I am a Black pastor in a predominantly white community. And I think it's because of one reason. Because Jesus Christ is on display in my life. It's not about me being Black or white. It's about that. And that's what I think we need to put our energy, our efforts into. I don't think arguing, fighting, fussing, cussing, all of those things is going to solve this problem. Go ahead, Mr. So come on up. Come on up, boss. Absolutely. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. You came in. I love it.
Anyway, what I wanted to say is that Tom is right, obviously, and Christ is the answer. And the thing that we all need to understand is that we all got purpose. We're all on earth for a purpose, and we got to identify what that purpose is. And whatever it is, we need to focus on it and do that, because that's, like Tom said, instead of just talking about all this other random nonsense, let's focus on what we need to do and move forward. That's the most important thing. So try to identify the purpose in your life. And I'm 70, so He's a kid to me, so I
You're 70?
Yeah,
That's
okay.
awesome.
Yeah. No, I'll be 70 in a week.
Oh, good for
Yeah.
you.
Happy birthday. Okay. So anyway, yeah. You got Dr. Grass, I got the pens. But anyway, but the thing about it is really, we've got to have purpose. Purpose is very important. And if we stay focused on the purpose and why we're here in our community, we will grow and be stronger than anybody. That's all I gotta say.
Amen.
My man, thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much. No, absolutely.
Oh, I need this again. Oh, so yeah, Harlem's was predominantly black when I was growing up in the 60s and things like that. And I can tell you what, through slavery, religion got us through that stuff, got my ancestors through that stuff. That's why they were singing hymns all the time and they were praying all the time, because they had to get through that, And so you asked that question. Now, what the real question is, as time has went on, not just in the black community, in all communities, a lot of young people have stepped away from it because they wasn't raised in the faith. They don't know faith. They don't know God. You understand what I'm talking about? So that's an issue. So the disconnection is what's causing, to me, all the problems in the world right now. It's things like that. So that's why I say, know the purpose, get refocused, and know what you're here for. Right? Thank you.
Absolutely.
So I know you're on the city council. I voted for you. What? Yeah. So tell me your name again. I know I voted. So what are your thoughts on the city council to help our community with some of, do you have any thoughts on this for our little town in Race?
I don't like to get political because we're not here for political talk, but the thing about it, the city is growing, okay? It's inevitable. People say, well, we don't want Redmond to we want Redmond to stay Redmond. I understand that, and it will, but it's up to you guys. Your voices need to be heard. I go to city council meetings. Before I got on city council meetings, no one was there. No one gave any voice. No one says anything. So what do you, if you don't ask for nothing, you ain't gonna get anything. That's just the way it works. You understand what I'm talking about? And what I'm saying is that everybody looks at Ben because Ben has grown really rapidly, But Redmond, I think we got a better style because we're managing the growth and we're trying to ease it in. And by doing so, we're also trying to keep all the environment and everything just the way you guys want it. You understand what I'm talking about? I'm not from here, but I respect your city and I love your city. But the fact of the matter is that, growth is going to come. People are trying to get out of cities now because, the pandemic and all that nonsense. So people just spreading out all over the place, So I guess it's better to prepare and be ready and just kind of so it blends in than to do like, I hate to knock Ben, but I'm not knocking Ben. They told me I just exploded, because I've been coming here for like 20 something years. My mother-in-law lives out here. So that's why, but I've watched this little tiny town just grow. Cause I think it was like, when I was coming here back in 20 years, it was like 5,000 people. I had a high school bigger than that. And now we're at 34,000 people, Yes, and I tell everybody, whether you agree with me or not, as far as like my position on certain things, you still need to be involved. Tell me I'm wrong, prove to me I'm wrong, okay? And we can have that discussion. And we'll probably end up agreeing to disagree. But that's just what it's all about, conversation and talking. Even now, this conversation is good because we don't talk enough. And I think it's time that we sit and have these kind of, and I want to thank Tom and his wife for having this here, because this is the kind of stuff we need. We really do. Because you don't know me and I don't know you. And we need to know each other. You can never be, just like Tom was saying, I've gotten dragged out of a police car for nothing, okay? I lived in, and I'm not knocking this area, I've only been, August will be my 4th year here, I've been stopped 3 times, okay? And I'm just saying, I talk to people in this town, they say, I ain't never been stopped. I know. And they always ask me, well, do you think it's because of your color? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. I can make an assumption, but I don't even think about that kind of stuff. Because when you think about it, then you dwell on it. I don't dwell on things that waste my time, okay? I look to move forward and try to do positive things. That's what I do. That's awesome. Right?
Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it. And we'll wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for sitting and listening. Even I hope you got something out of it. And I think when I go back to the incident that I feel just really kind of brought the country to its knees in George Floyd, and when I watched that, the thing that I really struggled with was when people immediately made it about a white man hating a black man. And I said, we can't know that unless we're in his mind or he tells us. Here's what we know, that one man did something horrific to another man. And that is what should alarm us. Not that it was a white man and a black man. It was that it was two image-bearing people, and their lives are going to be forever altered. Their lives are going to be forever changed because of that. And I think as soon as we go, like he said, I don't know why is it because you're black? I don't know. I don't know. But if I assume the worst, then I really can't go anyplace else if I assume the worst. But if I say, you know what, I don't know, but here's what I'm going to do. You know what? Please stop me. You know what I do? Yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you. Please. That's how I behave. And I think we all have to take responsibility for our part. Instead of me saying, hey, because you're white, you need to fix this, I say, you know what? It needs fixing. What's my part? What's my part? Needs fixing. What do I do? And I think that that's the only way we can actually get better. So, Shelby? I'm going to read a piece of scripture. Okay, I'm going to read a piece of scripture to close. It's okay. I'm going to close with a piece of scripture. And, when we went through our study of Galatians, I'm going to take us back to Galatians. And one of the things that I talk about with Jesus Christ is Jesus Christ. If you're not a Christ follower, I would say that there is compelling reason to be a Christ follower, because he has this upside down kingdom where he says, you know what, everybody is welcome at the table. And in Galatians chapter 3, the Apostle Paul writes these words, and I think as we look at the things that separate this culture, I go, here's the answer. He says, there is neither Jew nor Greek. There's neither Jew nor Greek. So in this upside down kingdom, your race is unimportant. There is neither slave nor free man. In this upside down kingdom, your status is unimportant. There is neither male nor female. Gender. Says, man, everybody's welcome. And I say for ladies, if you're not a Jesus follower, this is one of the most compelling reasons, because in a culture that women were almost invisible, Jesus elevated them to something great. There is neither male nor female, and here's why. You are all one in Christ. And if we look at one another and we look for Christ in one another, I think we can start to put away some of the stuff that rips us apart. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I hope the conversation was something that makes you think, and you weigh some things out, and I hope you understand yourselves better. I hope you understand each other better. And I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. We plan on maybe once a month having a culture war. Like I said, we're gonna tackle some stuff. My executive pastor in the back, Brother Mike, when I tell him, he's like this. Oh, what are you doing, man? He's like, what are you doing? Right? But we're gonna do it. Thank you guys for coming. Everybody online, thank you for sticking with us. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. My email, we'll leave it up there, Jeff. My email, if you guys have any questions, it's tom@redmondcc.org. And thank you guys for coming. Have a great night.